Testing. 1, 2, 3. All right, everyone, welcome back to another Friday night live stream here from the Great White North. Not so white anymore. Not so
icy north.
Not so white anymore. More like icy north. Glad to have you all back into the shop this evening. Thank you, everyone who has super chatted so far already this stream. God bless you. Greatly appreciate that. So this evening we're going to be working on, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. We're going to be working on one of my last custom made hammers that I'll be doing for a client, and it's made from wrought iron with 1045 faces welded on. So that's what we're going to be working on, and I'm going to go to camera number 2, Jess, here real quick. I'm going to show off what we're going to be doing. So over the next stream or two, we're going to weld up this hammer billet and maybe get an eye punch through it. I've got 2 pieces of steel here laid out for what will become the face of the hammer, what will become the peen of the hammer, and then the actual wrought iron hammer billet itself. So this is 2 layers of bridge steel. This is, or bridge wrought iron. This particular wrought iron came from a bridge that was constructed in 1906, and so it's pretty high quality wrought iron. Makes great for hammers and things like that. So that's what we'll be welding up tonight, is this. So there's going to be a lot of hurry up and waits and things of that nature, but we may get around to reshaping these billets so this way they fit the faces here and fit the peen, but we'll have to see how far along we get in the stream this evening. Whatever we don't get done in this stream, we'll probably get these welded up next stream if we don't, get far enough here. So that's what we'll be working on this evening. One other real quick disclosure point. Are we on the main cam or the side cam?
There we go.
Are we on the side cam?
Main cam now.
We're main cam. Okay. One other real quick disclosure point about any sort of old wrought iron that you get. They had a horrible tendency to paint things with lead-based paint. So with that being said, you will probably see a lot, like an excess of stuff kind of falling and coming off of this. That could possibly be a lead-based paint. Now most of this has been removed off of this piece, but there are still little tiny bits of things that are clung on. So in this particular case, although wrought iron does not require any flux of any kind to be welded up, to weld it up to itself, we'll have to use a small bit of flux on this to clean down between the layers, between the 2 individual halves of this piece, to flush that paint residue garbage out. That way it'll bond with it and run it out the bottom side of it. So we'll go ahead and get this hot, and then we'll give it a decent little fluxing once it comes up to temperature. And this is one of the very rare times that you'll actually see me use flux of any kind. Usually I don't do fluxing at all. I just straight up weld with 0 flux whatsoever. But in this case, where there's going to be a high probability of dirt or junk, like in the case of a lead-based paint being stuck between those 2 layers, I want to get that clean out through there, and that's the perfect use case for flux. Whenever you're going to trap scale of some kind.
Justin Ray says, lots of hurry up and waits. Does that mean lots of time for Roy rants?
Yes, lots of Q&A. Lots of time for that. Let's set these blocks out of the way. I debated a little bit about actually doing this for a stream because there's going to be a lot of hurry up and wait. So if you're watching this on the replay in about 25 minutes or so, it'll probably be hot enough to actually weld up. But it's going to be 25, 30 minutes at least before it's ready to do that. So if you're just watching on the replay and you're just wanting to get to the juicy stuff, it'll be about 25 minutes from now when that billet's hot enough.
CU Metal says, ooh, Roy's using flux tonight. Yay!
And I'm going to show you the proper amount of flux to use, too.
Metal Blueberry says, this is Roy's holiday. Flux for everyone.
Yeah, flux for everyone. There you go. So I get it's a joke. It's kind of a common inside joke around the channel here and around YouTube and the blacksmithing community about, you know, uh-oh, Roy's here, hide the flux, hide the borax, right? Because I've made videos before about overfluxing and, you know, how you don't need that much flux. So if you're just new and joining us, I use flux in the shop, but I only use it when it's appropriate and when it's needed. I am not the one to go, you know, dip this thing into a bucket of flux and just swirl it around and do like that. And if you've got flux laying out all over your shop and it looks like it snowed in your shop after you're done fluxing things, you're doing it wrong. You don't need that much flux to actually get welds to stick. So that's not the purpose of flux. It's not a glue. It's not a paint job. It doesn't do anything else for it other than it cleans out the scale from between two surfaces via capillary action. Ugh, that's a big word.
Bortagov says, happy Flux Day, everyone.
Happy Flux
I
Day.
should have renamed the title on this live stream. Instead of it being Roy Forge welding a wrought iron hammer, it should have been Roy using flux.
Yeah. See, that's the way YouTube works. Here's my first rant. This will be my first rant. Not one single person is out there like, ooh, I want to watch this guy forge weld up wrought iron. I can do it masterfully. I could do it in my sleep. I could make it just do this most beautiful thing. Nah, nobody cares. It'll be like 200-300 view video. But if Jessica were to change the thing and be like, Roy uses flux, or this is a message to all you fluxers out there, guess what? It'll go big. It'll be a 1,500, 2,500 view video, sometimes 5 or 10,000 views. And the content, literally, the content inside of the video will be exactly the same information. But just because of the clickbait title, people will actually click on it. Oh. I'll never get it. I'd like to say, you know, I'll watch some clickbait stuff, so I won't say that I don't ever click on clickbait, but at the same point, I don't usually ever click on clickbait. When I'm on YouTube, I'm hunting something specific, and I get really perturbed when I'm looking for something specific and it doesn't match up. You know, the title doesn't match up with the actual video. Someone's vlogging for 45 minutes, walking around town or something, and they're not getting to the information that I was after. So I try my best to present the information as quickly as humanly possible in an effort. And my titles and thumbnails are pretty bland, except when I feel ornery and I want to use some clickbait because I'm tired of being behind the pack.
So a little test there. So we are at 66 viewers currently.
Okay.
So I changed the title to Roy uses flux, and then in parentheses I put forge welding a wrought iron billet. So we'll give it like 30 minutes and see what happens.
Yeah, but see, we got to have that really stupid face.
Oh yeah.
That everyone does, like.
Yeah, and you gotta be like throwing white stuff in the air.
You know, yeah, I gotta be throwing flux everywhere. I gotta be real expression.
Yeah, true. We
have
are
a lot of
lacking the
expression.
thumbnail. Yeah.
That's how you rope them in.
That's right. See you metals. You should change it before it does if you're able to. See what happens with the views. See you metals. Yep, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens with it. So.
Metal blueberries. It's all about the marketing keywords you use. Ah, yes.
Yep, all about the marketing keywords. Information's the same.
Brittingham Forge. So if I title my video, Roy doesn't give a flux, do you think it will get some views?
Probably will. Almost guaranteed, it probably will. We'll see. It just depends on how contrarian you are. So there's a whole genre of that on YouTube. You know, you just make videos to be contrary to other people. And satire, right? And stuff like that. And there's a whole genre of that on YouTube that will do very, very well. You might be demonetized, but you never know. You know, it depends on how satire and stuff you're being with it, but.
Wiley Rook, I feel cheated. I want to see the face.
You want to see the face?
With the flux.
The big dumb face. All right. Well, let's get into some news while we're waiting on this thing to heat up. got some announcements to make real quick for anybody who cares. Announcements. Big thanks to Wiley Rook Blade Works, who is contributing the Kiridashis for the next giveaways, for upcoming giveaways. Oop, set that hammer down there. I've got some of them here. These are going to be in our giveaway live streams. So big thank you to Wiley Rook for sending these out. Can they see that there? Are we at camera 2?
Yep, we are.
This one's actually got a bit of file work on the spine, which is awesome. And it's also got, looks like copper liners in it. It's a little Kiridashi. Comes in here. Brute to forge, as she said. Right down there, there's a little spot that they arrow marked here that has a little bit of forge scale left there. So a little brute to forge action. Anyways, that's a pretty awesome deal there. We also have this one here as well. Another one, beautiful situation. That'll be coming up in next week's live stream. And then we also got, you know, your more plain ones here. Still pretty awesome. This is like a plain Kiridashi. All with Kydex sheaths, which is nice.
Very nice.
And then this one's got a little can opener on it back in, which I thought was pretty cool.
Multi-purpose.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Wiley, for sending those over. Those will help make the giveaway streams a lot more tolerable for people to come hang out at for the evening. So greatly, greatly appreciated. Super appreciated. Thank you so much. So that will be a part of the next live stream that we do. So this stream we're doing is just a forging only stream, and then the next live stream that we get onto, which will be the second live stream of the month, we will end up having giveaway items like door prizes, and we'll be giving away another swedge block. So you want to be tune into that. Another announcement. This is just kind of a public service announcement for the channel in general. So I shoot videos, and well, obviously I shoot videos. I shoot videos in batches. That's something that I do regularly here at Chrysler Ironworks. It gives me time to actually work on all my other work that I need to get around to, versus just being, you know, nailed down in the forge trying to make a recent content. So I batch shoot videos. And what that does is, now that we have memberships and we have channel members, sometimes channel members fall off. Other times we get more channel members that get on. And what that does is, since I batch shoot videos up to about a month out in advance, I'm trying to put the membership names at the end of the video. Well, that means there's going to be a gap of time for about a month before you would see your name in a video. So keep that in mind, that I batch shoot videos. So if you haven't seen anything like, hey, I joined, but where's my name? You won't see it until the following month, most likely, because I've already took a list of all the names, added it to the end credit reel on a video. So, and that video was shot, chances are, a month ago or a few weeks prior to maybe you joining and becoming a channel member. So just keep that in mind, that there is a delay on that from your name being added to the list of the names on the credit reels at the end of my videos. So that's good there.
However, it is updated instantaneously on our live streams, so
yeah,
you'll see it there right away.
So on our live streams, like up, right, that's our current membership list. So at the beginning, the pre-roll for our live streams, that's the current membership list of everybody who's decided to become a channel member and help support us in what we do here at Chrysler Ironworks. And so, yeah, that'll be updated and be up to date as of current. So be sure to become a channel member if you want to get your name on that or on my membership wall.
Yep.
We're getting close to doing another membership stream where I add more members' names to the membership wall. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
It's up there. It's up there.
It's right there.
Yep.
Right there.
Thank you, Black Collar, for the $10 super chat. He says, did Roy just say flux? He just got some in the Black Collar army.
I did say flux.
He did.
Thank you for the $10 super chat. Greatly appreciate that. Black Collar Ironworks.
Wayne Morey says, be right back. Don't do anything cool. Might do something hot.
I'll try not to do anything cool.
Nick Rolfe says, Roy, what are your thoughts on claying forges? Good or bad idea?
I didn't hear.
What is your thoughts on claying forges? Is it good or bad idea?
If the forge requires clay, some of them do. They're cast iron. I think Buffalo Forge Company made a cast iron, basically body of a forge along with a fire pot, and those generally were clayed, so you had to put clay in them, for a solid fuel forge. Forges like this riveting forge here, this one doesn't require clay. It never had clay in it. You just build the fire up in the center and pack up your coal, wet down coal around it, and that's just kind of how you build up your fire on these type forges. So if the forge requires it, sure, put clay in it. It can't hurt. The one big thing I see people do is they stress out about the clay getting cracks in it and stuff like that. That's natural. As clay dries, it's going to crack all up and stuff. It doesn't matter. Really, the main purpose of the clay is to create a heat barrier or an intense, take the temperature difference between the nice cold bottom of the forge and the really blazing hot of the fire and bring that closer. So you're just putting like an insulator in between those two things, the really hot fire versus the cast iron. And the reason for that being is a lot of smiths like to water down the coal on their forges, and if you have a cast iron body, a lot of times, guys, after a full day, you get that thing screaming hot, and if you dumped a bunch of water on it, you could crack the entire body. And you'll find some old forges out there that definitely have cracks running straight across by the fire pots. And that's generally what it came from, is someone dumped up too much of a dipper can on it, and that temperature differential caused the cast iron to crack. So if your forge says clay it, clay it. If you're making one from scratch, if you're making out a thin material, I would suggest claying it. If you're making out of a thicker steel, if you're fabbing it up, I wouldn't worry about it.
Is there a specific type of clay that's used in lining forges?
Fire clay. I've had people put furnace cement for furnaces in there. River clay, just clay of any kind. Really, I mean, it could be dirt for that matter, or sand. It could be dirt or sand. Really what you're trying to do is you're just trying to create a protective layer on top of your cast iron in order to get it to last a lot longer and not be subjected to such extreme temperature differentials.
Robert Lana says, hey peeps.
Hello. Good to have you. We're waiting on this hammer billet to heat up here. I've got it going here. I might have to pull out all stops to get it even hotter.
Al Jazz says, how big is your forge and how big of a forge would you recommend for a beginner?
Okay, the forge is roughly 2 foot by 2 foot square. This might be just a fuzz over that, by, I don't know, 30-ish inches tall. Again, rough estimates here. Fire pot, I believe last time I measured it was like a 6-inch by like 6 by 8 by, I believe it is 4.5 inches or 5 inches deep. Last time I measured my fire pot, it has been quite a while. And as far as to answer what type of forge do I recommend for beginners, is that it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The one that you have access to. That's what I will recommend for beginners. I know that's a very loose statement. You know, some people, they are not in a situation where they can actually where they can have a coal forge. Otherwise, it would be my recommendation to get a coal forge first. Learn how to use a coal forge, get good at using a coal forge, and then move on to gas and other things. But that's, again, that's assuming that you have some instruction too as well. How to use it. You have somebody you can pick their brain on, like how to light it and how to maintain a proper fire and things like that. So in general, most beginners start with gas forges, and that's perfectly fine as long as the gas forge has been treated appropriately, to where you're not going to get ceramic fibers in your lungs. So, my suggestion is whichever forge you can get a hold of. They all do roughly the same thing. Heat steel, right? Mm-hmm. They're all meant to heat material. Some will do a little better at certain jobs than other ones, but that's all getting into specialty. And as a beginner, you don't really need a specialty forge. You need kind of a jack of all trades, master of none kind of forge. Good question. What else, Jess?
Let's see. Yes. Repty Ben says, will a railroad tie plate work as a starter anvil?
Railroad tie plate?
Mm-hmm.
It can be fine. It's a hard surface, or a harder surface that you can beat upon. There's not really any mass to it, so with there not being any mass behind it, you're going to lose a lot of energy in every hammer blow by just getting absorbed into the tie plate that's probably stuck on a railroad tie or a stump that's in the ground or whatever. So you're going to lose a lot of hitting energy. So yeah, take lots of breaks and drink lots of water. It's going to be a rough way to go for a little bit until you can get a better anvil for yourself. You can really hit on anything that doesn't dent, anything that doesn't like just concave in like a car hood or something, right? As long as it's not so thin that every time you hit it, you hit the piece on top of it, it bends whatever's underneath it. That can be a anvil-like surface, or it can be a surface that can be beat upon. Does that make it a good anvil? No. Does that make it something you'll want to stick with forever? Probably not. There's a lot better options out there, but in a pinch, it'll do fine.
Brittinghammer Forge says, I don't have clay. Will PlayDoh work?
Huh?
Will PlayDoh work if he doesn't have clay?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
PlayDoh does tend to dry out, though, with time, so you might find it a bit crumbly.
Give it a try. Small scale first. Mm-hmm. That way, if it catches fire or it's got some other thing in it that's nasty, I don't know what's in PlayDoh, but you'll have a colorful forge.
Jeff Woodring says, will you please explain the coal forge atmosphere and how to get it so that you don't need borax for welding cleaned metal? Ooh,
that's a good one. You're asking me to teach. I could go into full explanation. Let's pin that for a second.
Okay.
I want to announce a few other things. Let me write that down.
Sure.
Actually, let me go grab this sheet of steel here.
Big Dog Forge says, hey Jess, what is the hairy guy with the hammer doing this time? Things that hairy guys do, I guess.
Hello, Tim. Good to see you, brother.
Good evening, Newts, Leather and Metal Smithy.
Don't laugh at my writing here. It's quick. I'm not giving any time or thought into spelling. So, all right. I will answer that question here in just a second.
Okay.
Oh. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Everything good? No super chats or nothing like that that we're ignoring? We're good? Okay, good. All right, so we got some upcoming events that will be going on. We get asked every live stream, where will I be at? What will I be doing? And I got an event page here. Jessica's giving me the legal letter, guys. I know what I'm doing now, finally. Although I need to get better at reading notes and then dictating them out here. Words are hard for me, and this makes it harder. But anyway, so upcoming events. Are we on the events page? Mm-hmm. All right, good. April 29th through May 2nd is the 2021 BAM OZARK Conference. I'll be demonstrating a French Baroque style sign bracket. It'll include all sorts of traditional joinery, forge welding. The primary focus that I have on it will be computational forging of the whole process of the sign bracket, offset 90-degree scrolls, finial ends, mid-bar collars, assembly of multi-component forgings, and finish work. So I'm going to try to cover quite a bit in that conference. So I'll be actually working for the next 2 months preparing for that conference. So that's one of the things that I'm doing currently. I worked on a SCAD of tooling today in order to take to the conference. for that. So if you can attend, you can go check that out at the BAM site, www.bamsite.org, and it's the Missouri State Fairgrounds in Sedalia, Missouri, I believe. So be sure to check that out. If you can, if you want to be there, be a part of that, watch me demonstrate, watch me fail a whole lot, you know, that whole jazz. So that'll be a fun event, and I'm super proud to be able to be considered to be a conference demonstrator out there. May 22nd through the 23rd, 2021, I'm going to be teaching a forged bowls and vessels class at Goshen, Ohio. In that one, we're going to be doing everything from fold forming to how to make patterns, use of patterns, and you know, there's no previous blacksmithing required. You can get a hold of Jamie Geyer, get a hold of him. I believe all his contact details, yes, Jessica, is down below, link in the description, so you can contact him to get involved there. July 24th through 25th, 2021, I'll be teaching an ornamental garden bench class. There's a max out limit of students of 10 students on that one, and there's going to be an uptick normally from the normal charge that there is for materials. There's going to be a higher price in materials because it being a garden bench, and so that's to be announced yet. And then finally, last but not least, in November 27th through the 28th, 2021, I will be teaching a Christmas gifts from the Forge class. That'll also be at Goshen as well. So all my classes except for BAM will be in Goshen, Ohio this year. And so I'll be teaching it three different times throughout the year. So if you want to check that out and come be a part, I'd greatly appreciate it. And you'll get a chance to take and learn a ton. Should. All right, this thing is ready to flux.
All right.
Oh, the dirty word. It's in my mouth.
Jamie says, looking forward to seeing you guys.
Jamie's here?
Jamie.
Jamie, I'm looking forward to it too, pal. I am going to have to get a hold of you. So Jamie will know this one. Jamie Geyer, he gave me this. Go to camera number 2, Jess.
All right.
Focus. There you go. He gave me this magical little tin here that's got some commercial grade borax in it. So this is really good stuff. And I do mean really, really good stuff. Way better than like your 20 mule team stuff. So if you're interested, get in touch with Jamie. Jamie Geyer. He can go through his contact information. He may have some of this. He might let some of you have. Since I know everyone out there likes to overflux everything. So since this is ready to go, I'm going to show you the appropriate amount to use of your flux here. I'll bring this out of the fire. This is like a bright orange right now. Bright orange in color temperature. It's going to look super hot on camera because I don't have it turned down. But I'm going to coat this flux right along the seam there. And that's all it's needed. Go put that away.
You guys saw the magic happen.
Yeah. So what this does is through capillary action, it pulls that flux down through that joint and it adheres as it goes. I don't know if you guys can see it dripping out the bottom end. I don't know if you guys can see that or not.
Not quite, no.
Right here, that's flux.
Oh, okay.
It's dripping out the bottom end. What that does is as it goes through there, it pops the scale off the surface of the material and it pulls it along with it through capillary action and pulls it through the joint. Now, if you leave it out too long, like I'm doing right now, talking and whatnot, you may have to end up refluxing it because as you expose this hammer billet to air, to the oxygen in the environment, it's going to just continue to oxidize. So then you'll have to add a pinch more flux. So once you flux it, get it right back in the fire and let that heat pull that through the joint.
Metal Blueberry says only one side.
Yeah. Usually only one time.
And one side because of the capillary action.
And one side because of capillary action. So, are we at the main cam?
Yep.
Okay. So, you only do one side. If you do two sides, you can actually stop that capillary action from happening, and you can trap the scale inside of your welded surface, and then you get an inclusion. You don't want that, especially after you've done all the hammer work, forging this into a hammer, put all the faces on, blah, 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 go to punch and drift the thing, and a seam opens up on you. And that's why you trapped the scale in between the layers, because you coated it like a big blanket in scale. And yeah, scale and flux.
Is the borax anhydrous? Asked Jeff Woodring.
You'll have to ask Jamie. I don't know if it's anhydrous borax or what it is. I believe it is anhydrous, but.
Big Dog Forge says, I think we need a lot more.
A lot more, he says. Oh.
Rob Huff says, what's this, Roy making Damascus?
Sure, that's what it is. If you want to see this, if you actually want to see this and do this little test for yourself, I encourage you to get 2 plates of steel. They need to be fairly thick plates, say 1/2 inch, and get you a 4x4 inch section of them. Grip them together, put flux on one edge, and heat those, well, first heat those plates all up, put flux on one edge, and then let them cool down. Okay, let the heat, do its thing, let the flux go through the piece, and when you pull it apart, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The flux penetrates through the entire joint as it goes through. You don't need to coat all surfaces with flux.
The Irish Blacksmith says, as a brand new smith, I appreciate all you teach, all your videos, Roy. Thank you for your efforts. Taught me a great deal, and I have the push I needed to build a forge and take the leap. Love it.
Awesome. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm glad you're part of the channel. So, I need to put out one little disclaimer and caveat to the whole fluxing thing. My perspective of fluxing, when to flux, when not, when to put how to set up my welded joints and things like that, are purely based upon my own experiences and my own trial and error in my shop and the classes and the smiths that I've worked under. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean there's not other areas, not other things that could be true about fluxing. For instance, a common thing, which I don't see to be true, but I can see it be true in certain circumstances, is a lot of people say, well, the flux protects the iron or the steel from over-oxidization. How much of that is true? I don't know. I don't know. I just know what flux's original intended purpose was from the very beginning, and it wasn't for sugar-coating things, turning it into a nice little happy baby blanket, right, of flux all the way around it. It was meant to very specifically attack areas where you would trap scale to help get the scale or expel the scale from the joint. So again, you'll see people, just because you see people over fluxing, doesn't, again, they may not be doing it my way, but it might be the correct way to do it in their particular situation. So before you infer somebody else's opinion onto someone else's work, make sure you ask them why they are fluxing so much or why they are using a particular hammer or flux or whatever that they're doing. Be sure to ask them where they've developed their methodology from just before you go criticizing. I said all that to just say you can take everything I'm doing here and everything that I say with authority, I say from full authority from my own personal experience. That does not necessarily make it true in all instances. Good. What's up?
Matt Wythe says, Roy, do you only use flux in the coal forge so that you don't destroy the gas forge floor?
I've used flux in gas forges as well. I generally do not forge weld in a gas forge, and I don't do that just because my Menkel gas forge it takes a lot of gas in that thing to get that whole area up to forge welding temps. This is much more economical, and I'm much more comfortable with forge welding this way. I've used other gas forges, however, the type that are set up for doing like Damascus work and stuff, they can bring a billet up to welding heat real quick, you know, or bring up 2 ends of a rod up to welding heat real quick. But with my particular forge, that's not the case. I've got to brick in most of the openings, and it's a mess to bring it up to full heat. So if it needs flux, I'll flux. I don't care if it's in the gas forge, the liner's replaceable, or if it's in here. Either or.
It's not like you're doing it that often, though.
No. This can, Jamie gave to me a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, and this thing is plumb full. I haven't barely touched it. So, in fact, I've got some 20 Mule Team borax that's been sitting in that tray for 4 years. I filled the tray up once, and
it's like half
4
Brit.
or 5 years ago, and it's still, yeah, it's still in there.
Tim, big dog, take care. He says he's got to run. His wife got home.
Hey, take care, Tim. Thanks for stopping by, brother.
Newts says use Plistex 900F on the bottom of your gas forge to stop the flux from eating your refractory.
Cool.
And
This kind of goes into my rant from earlier, but before I get into that, I should answer that question about coal atmosphere. Shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Should I answer that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm not good at writing with this thing upright. I'm going to try to lay it down and draw exactly what I'm talking about, and then I will show it off to the camera, I guess. That work good? Or I don't know.
Camera angles. Yeah, it's
How
pretty
about
good.
camera number 2? Can you see that okay?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay. How do you weld in a coal forge without flux to get a neutral atmosphere? That was the question, correct?
Uh-huh.
How do you obtain a neutral atmosphere?
Yep.
Let me check on this, make sure we're good. I keep turning it from side to side because I need to make sure both halves of that billet's good and heated up. Can they see that all right? That looks good. Okay, so you have your fire in here. The very first thing you're going to have down at the bottom of this fire is you're going to have clinker. That is a byproduct of the coal burning, or coke, doesn't matter. So you have your clinker in there. Okay? Up from that, or you should have your coke. In an all coke forge, this is all going to be coke. But in a green coal forge that most people have, the internal burning portion, the part that provides you the heat, is the coke. And that should take you all the way up to nice dead even with the top of the forge. So that portion of it is your coke. Additionally, you should have an abundance of coke on top as well. Trying to do this quickly enough that I don't burn the material. So this top portion, you should have an equally good amount of coke. Then along the sides, we're just gonna do it like this, mound it on the sides here. That way I don't have to draw out all the zeros. Up along your sides, this should be your green coal. Your green coal comes up from the sides. It converts in this area to what they call breeze. I'll just do it now. Spellroy. Probably still spelled it wrong.
You're good.
And so this should be green coal. I'm working on it, guys. Stick with me. Yeah. Just write this in here. Is everybody following so far? Tracking what I said? Everybody's good?
Yep. Neil Graham says it's like watching Bob Ross.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it.
Therapeutic.
All right, so I think I have this figured out. I don't know if we can see that okay. Should I turn it up to the main cam?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Can they see that on the main cam?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Did I draw it big enough?
Yep, it's big enough.
Okie doke. So let me go into it here. Ugh. Stay up there. You. All right. So on the outside you have your green coal. As your green coal burns, catches fire, heats up, bakes off, however you want to say it, it turns into this light, fluffier type coal called breeze. That's as it's baking out a lot of the tars and some of the other stuff that holds the coal together. You're going to have it converts to what they call breeze. As it gets closer to the hot portion of your fire where the main heat's going, it converts to coke. And this stays in a circle of life like this. You always add green coal to the outside, it converts to breeze, which gets shoved to the center, which becomes coke, which heats your steel. And then the cycle of life repeats again. So how you get an oxygen neutral environment in a coal forge in order to forge weld without flux is you need to be in this sweet spot. Every forge has a sweet spot. You need to have ample amount of coke underneath you, and you need to have ample amounts of coke above the steel that's being worked on. The reason for that being is your air blast is coming up through here. And what this coke does is it absorbs all of that oxygen. So in here is the oxygenating part of the fire. This layer from here down is an oxygenated rich part of the fire. That's why we don't dig our bars of steel down to the bottom of our air blast. We don't follow the coal down into the fire pot. That's why we don't do that. Up here is your neutral layer, okay? That's why you want to be in the center of that neutral layer, ideally for forge welds. And the reason why you want the coke on top is because this coke, when it's on a blaze, it prevents oxygen from infiltrating from the atmosphere. So it stops the atmospheric oxygen from getting to the steel as well. You'll know that you found the sweet spot when you can stick a bar of steel in there and pull it out, and it starts to instantly oxidize once it gets pulled out of the fire, not before. If you pull your steel out and it's just got scale dripping off of it, you've got too much oxygen flowing into your fire. You need to reduce the airflow that's coming into this, or you need to build your fire up so the coke consumes the oxygen that's going in. Hopefully that makes sense.
I noticed just before the stream you had put quite a few big shovelfuls of coke right up on your forge, more so than what you normally run when you're just doing regular forging.
Yeah, because I've got such a big billet. So the larger your hammer billet gets, the larger the piece of material, the more coke you need on top. The more coke you need around it, the more coke you need underneath. The larger it gets, you need to put a bigger pile of coke on, generally, as a rule. Was that helpful?
Yes. Yeah.
Did everybody think that was pretty good?
Yeah. Yeah, they liked it.
We are almost up to forge welding temp. So
okay.
I got one half of it up to forge welding temp as we were talking there, and we're getting a lot closer now.
Leroy Pryor said he was nervous about your work in the fire.
Yeah. Well, it is something to be nervous about. Now, as I get closer to forge welding temp, I'm going to reduce the air blast down a little bit because I want the coke to start starving out all the oxygen in the fire, and that will help things out. But with wrought iron, so you can start coming down with that air blast a little bit. With wrought iron takes heat And I do mean a lot of it. It takes a lot of heat for wrought iron to get welded. And you're just simply not going to get that type of heat out of a gas forge generally, not on this big of a chunk. You got to have a monster gas forge or really super well insulated to get wrought iron on this scale. This is about a 4-pound chunk of wrought iron. To get that all up to forge welding temps in a gas forge, it's a nightmare. You'll be there all day. You will be there all day and just barely get there. So, adjust that a little bit.
Neil Graham says, Professor Roy with another wise declaration.
Another wise declaration. So in a coke forge, everything's coke. There's no green coal. So you avoid the green and breeze step and you just have coke. So that means there's still impurities in that coke, mainly sand that's in that, and that has to melt out and run to the bottom, get collected and turn into clinkers at the bottom of your fire pot. Different cokes will be cleaner, some will be dirtier. It just depends.
Gordon Farmer asked if that info is the same for all coal forges in size and coal.
This info here?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yes, exactly the same. So say you have a coal forge that doesn't have a fire pot. Then you need to stack a bunch of coal on top, get it turned to coke, set your piece on, bury it with more coke on top of that. So you have to make your own fire pot, so to speak, right? If you don't have a really nice big deep fire pot. You can tell, like on some of the larger like industrial coal forges where they did a lot of smithing out of them, larger stuff, anchor shops and things. I've seen some at Quad State and whatnot, and they've got a fire pot that, good God, I would not want to have to fill it. The thing's, 8-10 inches deep and 14 inches square fire pot, and it's because they need that much mass of coal and coke built up in there in order to bring the parts up to proper temperature. So if you picture that, there's probably at least double that, or at least 2.5 times more coke than just the volume of that alone. That would all be ablaze just to get their pieces hot that they're working on.
The Art of Craftsmanship says, hey guys, always a pleasure to watch some live smithing.
What's that?
The Art of Craftsmanship says hello.
Says what?
Hello.
Hello. Did they say a pleasure of something?
Yes, pleasure to watch live smithing.
Pleasure to have you here. All right, so we're getting real close here. This is right on the cusp. When you're forge welding wrought iron, wrought iron likes to squirt. It likes to squirt silica everywhere. So in wrought iron, you have silica, which is basically kind of sand. You'll have little layers of silicate in there, and then you will have the iron itself. And when you whack that, it likes to squirt stuff everywhere, mainly that silica. So on your first initial pops, they should be light, quick, poppy kind of hammer blows, and then get into more of your setting blows after that. But if you bring it out and you Thor hammer it there, you're gonna weld a burning blaze of metal about belly button height right across you. So you're gonna have a bunch of liquid metal squirting everywhere,
Yes.
and that can hurt the weld from sticking as well. So because you've squirted all that liquid, that surface liquid metal, out of the welded joint. Oh, so close. Come on, get there. I think we'll have to bring it up just that bit.
What is the end hammer billet projected size?
What's that?
What's the end size supposed to be for the hammer?
I'll have to look at it, but I believe it's 3 pounds.
I think so, yeah.
I remember I cut the stock for this many months ago, and I'm just getting around to actually getting after it. So.
Gordon Farmer asked if the same is true for anthracite, about mounding it up and all that.
Anthracite, twice as much, because anthracite doesn't coke up. That's why I hate anthracite. That's why I don't like using anthracite. If that's what you have, that's what you've got to go with. there's a bit of a schism there. There's people who say, oh, don't use anthracite. And then there's the people who say, well, that's all I have in my area. So what are you telling me? I can't forge? And where the communication lines break down, the reason why bituminous coal is so much better over anthracite is anthracite doesn't coke. And the important thing to the coking process is the coke is porous. It eats the oxygen that's in the fire. Without that, the oxygen slips straight through and it burns your steel. So that's why you want something to coke. You want it to coke up. Anthracite can put out a lot of heat, but it doesn't coke up. It basically turns into hard little rocks that have zero surface texture to them whatsoever. So they're barely eating up any oxygen. So for anthracite, I'd say you probably have to do double what you'd have to do in a regular coke forge. Now that's just me guessing because again, I don't use the stuff myself. General forging practice, things like that, your anthracite and things is going to be just fine for that because you're just heating material up, right? You're just heating material up. But once you start getting up into the higher temperature ranges where you need to control the oxygen getting to your material, it becomes a lot more difficult when you have something that's fighting you, the forged material that you're in fighting you. So I think this is hot enough.
Okay.
I'm going to pull it out and give it a go.
All right.
Use my lighter hammer. We can go to camera number 2, Jess.
Okay.
I'm also going to darken this camera down a little bit. I'm going to give it some shades. Can everybody see it okay?
Yeah, that looks good.
There? Good? All right. All right, so this is going to be our first initial weld here. This isn't even as hot as it could be, but we'll go with it. We're at camera 2?
Yes, we're at camera 2.
All that liquid metal coming off of there. Yeehaw. All right. Okay, I'll give this a good scratch down.
So I gotta take another 30 minutes to get fully back up to heat.
Yep. Now I will inspect it. So I got a bit of a dirt on this seam here. So I'm probably going to give that one more real quick flux. Just to take out that seam. Because there's a bit of dirt in the seam. It's not a pocket, but there's just a teensy bit of dirt on that seam, so we'll salt that a little bit and get it back in the fire. But that's welded up. It's a light welding heat. Now we'll take it up a little higher. And we'll get into it. But did you guys see the splurting of liquid metal? I wish I could showcase this a little bit better. Let me take this back up a little bit. Can they see that better now?
That's
okay.
a little too bright. You can back it down a bit.
Too bright? Right
Yeah.
there?
Yeah,
Right there is good?
right there, yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can pull up some of this.
Oh no, Neil.
What's up?
Neil said his phone froze right when he pulled it out for the first pass.
Oh no! You'll have to go watch it on the replay. Can they see that all right?
Mm-hmm.
So that there is what I'm talking about, that surface between it. That's that sand coming out, that silica. that makes up the grain structure in wrought iron. It's laying right there. You can see it's silvery, a metallic-y, and it'll squirt like that out on everything. And it will burn your clothes. So that's why I'm wearing the big heavy jacket. We on the main cam?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm wearing the big heavy jacket. This is like a canvas cloth type jacket, as where the hoodie that I'm wearing underneath is a synthetic hoodie. So if I were to do that wearing this hoodie, I would catch fire. So don't want to do that. Not on this stream.
Metal Man, yes, it is a bit windy tonight. Great question from Chewy. Says, why make a hammer out of wrought iron instead of steel?
So this is before they had solid bars of steel that you could work with, and steel, as in high carbon steel, was harder to get a hold of and actually, use. They use it very sparingly for tooling. So what this hammer is this is a wrought iron hammer body with steel faces welded on. Now, the advantages of having a wrought iron body with steel faces welded on is, in my case, my particular use case, it will give me a lot of room for expression. A lot of room for me to take and express the thing with chasing and chisel work and relief work that I'm going to be doing on this hammer. So you do a lot of carving on the side of it because the wrought iron is soft and then the faces are hard. Usually, the sides of your hammer, you're usually not beating things with the side of your hammer. You're using one of the two faces that are on a hammer. So the body doesn't need to be hardened at all. It really comes down to the faces to be able to take a pounding and a beating. So it's okay to have a softer core, in other words, and a harder outside shell. So it's a traditional method of making a hammer. It's a traditional method when they didn't have real good steel to select from like we do nowadays. Nowadays, there's no good reason to make one out of wrought iron. There's not. A mono steel is going to probably outperform anything made with wrought iron and steel faces welded on. That's just the truth of it, because it's one mono steel. There's no weld lines. There's nothing to figure out there. And it's hell of a lot easier to make a modern hammer with modern tool steels than it is to make a wrought iron hammer with tool steel faces welded on.
Aimless Adventure says, if you get delamination later in forging, can you re-weld it?
Depends on how bad the delam is. So if it's wrought iron that we're talking about, if it delaminates, you can re-weld it up. You just got to get it hot, and you'll probably have to put some sort of flux, or sand would be a better choice. Take a bit of sand, beach sand, fine ground beach sand, and put it on the delam and then weld it up that way. That would be the best for wrought iron. Again, it just depends on how far down that process you are. If you're still in a big billet like this, you can keep forging it out and recutting it and restacking it up or doing whatever you got to do until you get a consolidated mass. It doesn't really matter on that. It can take the heat and it can take multiple forgings, and the only thing that wrought iron does is it just gets more refined at that point. So you can keep adding pieces on, or put little filler pieces in. Mild steel, however, if you're doing like a mild steel hammer with steel faces welded on, not so. If you get an inclusion or something on a mild, hang up your hat, chop it off and redo it again. It will never close up on you. Or I should say, it could, maybe once out of 100 tries, it might close up on you and actually be good, but I would be very leery of that always being there. So,
Robert Lannis, thank you for the $5 super chat. It's towards getting some more flux since you're going to use it all up tonight.
Thank you, Robert. Greatly appreciate that. God bless you, sir. The flux.
Rob Huff says he was on fire last month. You missed it. Jamie had to let him know.
Oh, you were on fire. Good. How long did Jamie sit there and snicker before he let you know? That's the key. He's not telling the whole story there.
Yeah. Black Collar says, how thick should a clay liner need to be and how much would be too much?
Usually clay liners are about 2 inches thick, 1.5 to 2 inches thick, sometimes a little thicker. Again, it's one of those things, it's a preventative for the forge. You could put 1 inch in there. It's just less preventative. Put 2 inches in there. You could lay down K-wool first and then throw a bunch of clay on top. There's a lot of different options there. The idea behind the clay is that becomes your working surface and it becomes your insulator, so you don't have that extreme temperature difference, that extreme delta T between your hot spot and your cold spot on your forge body. So I would say 1.5 to 2 inches. I believe you could probably go online. You could Google, go under like Sears, like Google old Sears and Roebuck catalogs online. There might be some good Google images out there that you can look up on those, because they were predominantly sold a lot through Sears and Roebuck catalogs, those type forges, and they might actually have some information on the actual advertisements there.
Hunter's Filbers says, have you done an iron smelt, and if you did, how did it go?
Never done an iron smelt, so it never went well at all.
Just didn't go.
I've never done an iron smelt. Oh.
Jonathan Welch says, Roy mentioned problems with using a gas forge for welding. Was that with your gas forge or all of them in general?
My gas forge. My gas forge, I can weld in my gas forge, but I have got to crank my gas forge full bore to get it there. And I've got to brick in every little crevice to get the chamber insulated enough to heat it up. My gas forge is a Menkel gas forge. It's open on 3 sides, and I've got one side blocked off, so it's opened on 2 sides. It's more of an artisanal forge. It's something for an artist. Somebody who's going to do scroll work, going to have larger pieces they need to heat up, you know, the center of some large bar stock or something like that, or railings or whatnot. That's what the gas forge is set up for. If you want a good forge welding forge, you need to get something that's really enclosed and really set up to having really good insulation and can keep the fire, you know, super insulated and hot right there in the center spot. The larger you get, volume-wise, interior volume, the harder it is to bring a gas forge up to forge welding temps. And this one, the Menkel, it just really can't do it without a lot of strain on the equipment. So I don't forge weld in the gas forge for that purpose. I've got a coke forge that'll do it twice as quick. Great questions.
Eric says, I imagine lump charcoal would act the same as coal, correct?
What, lump charcoal?
Mm-hmm.
Lump charcoal will take a ton of that. It'll take a ton of lump charcoal to get up to forge welding temps. But you can get up to the lower forge welding temps when it comes to the wrought iron. You can still forge weld with charcoal. When I did an apprenticeship or I did an internship under Tom Latney in Pepin, Wisconsin, he's a master locksmith up there. He uses nothing but charcoal. And in his forge, we use both green wood and charcoal because charcoal is expensive. Hardwood lump charcoal is expensive to buy, so he would go chop down trees or cut up dead stuff, and then we'd split that up and throw that and feed the forge with that for general forging projects. Smells great, but pretty low temperatures. Everything's forged at a lot lower temperature, as where coke and coal can get way insanely hot. To the point, like coke here, it can smelt steel. You can get it hot enough to smelt steel. Charcoal, not so much.
Patrick says, question, I am working on setting up my shop to start smithing. If I use a charcoal forge, do I need to use a vent hood? Or would turning the air of the shop with box fans work well enough?
Okay, if you're going to have a charcoal forge and you're going to have it inside of a space, a house, you know, a garage, right? A building of some sort. Charcoal puts off an insane amount of what they call fire fleas. It pops and cracks and sends little cinders everywhere, okay, that comes up out of the fire. And since it does that, and those things are light, and if you work a long day at charcoal forge, you will get fire flea bites all over your arms because of it. That is a fire danger inside of a house. So inside, not a house, but, you know, a garage or a shop. So you will need to have a hood of some sort to collect and funnel those fire fleas up through a chimney or a stack of some kind. You don't want to just be out in the open with no anything. If you're going to pull it outside, if it's going to go outside the shop and your shop's going to be inside, it doesn't matter. It's all the atmosphere. It's all good as long as you're not in a super dry area. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes.
Congratulations, by the way, to all the new people that are getting started. And thank you guys for watching my video content. There's over 1,500 videos. We're 35 away, I believe, from 1,550 videos of content here on YouTube. So anything you've got questions on, type in Christ Center Ironworks and then
the topic.
Then the topic that you're looking for. And chances are I've made a video, an in-depth video about that. So
we're a playlist.
But yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. I'm happy to have a lot of beginners and new faces here. It's great. We are almost there.
Okay. Neil Zagren says, Roy, I remember a couple of months ago you talking about forging axes. What happened to that idea?
Forging what?
Axes.
Forging axes. That idea is on the back burner currently. Truth be told, my year got away from me. We had some of the end of the year classes that we taught last year. Then, you know, basically got through Christmas, the live stream and stuff for the Great Christmas Giveaway live stream. Got through that, and then my teeth acted up on me, and that put me down for like the first 3 weeks of this year. So with a bunch of dental issues.
Yeah, we've had people in town.
I am behind. I am way behind. And so, this year we have decided to, I've actually have stopped. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while now. I'm restructuring the business right now. I've stopped taking custom orders 110%. So I'm only going to make things that I want to make, and they'll be ready-made items that'll be on my website. And so with doing that, I've been behind. I need to clear some books. I've got some people. The person who's waiting on this hammer specifically has been waiting a year and a half.
Yep.
Coming up on, or almost 2 years, so about a year and a half this hammer's been in the works. I made one hammer, the peen cracked on it in the quench after I had about untold hours, 60, 70 hours into it, the peen cracked on it, and so I had to make another one. So until I get my books cleared, I can't really start on those bigger things. Plus, I've got some other stuff coming up. I've got this conference that's coming up. So it seems like my life is getting increasingly more busy as I go. But it's still on the burner. It'll probably get around to it in the fall, unfortunately. You said that was Neil's?
Yes.
Congratulations on that big win, by the way, buddy. He won the I'm going to mess it up. He's going to be mad. Norway's version. I think that's it. Norway's version of Forged in Fire. So, big
cool.
Congrats on that.
That's neat. John Herdon, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, can you explain the temperature difference with different colors, for example, red, orange, etc., and what the ballpark temperatures are?
Yeah, so red, you're looking about 12 to 1,500 degrees, somewhere in there. When you're starting to just see color till the top end of red, the red temperature. When you get up above red temperature, you start getting into orange. Now you're in that 1,500 all the way up to about 1,700 or so degrees will be your orangish color. Then once you get over that into the 18, 19, 2000s, you're going to be into your yellow colors. And once you get over 2,000 degrees, then you're up into the whites. Or if you go way high, Up closer around, 27, 2800 degrees, you're into incandescent almost. It's so hard to look at. It'll practically blind you without shades on. So, but yeah, that's the temperature colors in general. And if you need all that repeated, rewind the video after this is over with. Great question, though. Thank you. This is ready for forge welding. Let's go to camera number 2.
All right.
It's good to go. Let me crank this back down so we're not staring into the abyss.
Aimless, thank you for the $5 super chat. Have a wonderful evening and be safe also.
Thank you, Aimless Adventure. Greatly appreciate it. All right, ready?
Yep.
Wear a glove on your tong hand.
Yes.
That scale comes right back up. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually peening the surfaces together a little bit to close up that seam. These billets stay hot a really long time on a hammer billet this size, so you have time to work it. So to give you an example about atmospheric conditions getting to this, I'll brush it up real clean here. I'm just going to set it there, and you can watch the scale reappear. Can they see that? Mm-hmm. Really good?
Wiley Rook says higher than that, and you'd have sparklers when you brought it out.
Yep. So I'm going to clear that off again. So this is why it's pointless to spend a load of time brushing your material as soon as it comes out of the fire to forge on it. As the old scale comes off, new scale is just going to reform in its place until it gets below a scaling heat. Once it gets below a scaling heat, the iron is not interacting with the atmosphere enough to create iron oxide once it's lost its temperature enough. So you wait until that temperature rises, and then you brush off your scale to see what you've done, and you end up with a cleaner billet without the scale on it. Does that make sense?
Yep. Jeff Woodring says, I don't see scale on the billet when it comes out of the fire. Does it scale up immediately, or does it take a little bit?
It doesn't. I've got an oxygen neutral fire. So you won't see scale when it comes out of the fire. You're going to see stuff squirting off of it because that's liquid metal that's kind of coming off, and silica. That's kind of liquid iron and silica coming off of there. In wrought iron's case. If you're in mild steel or something like that, it should, when you pull it out, it should look clean as a whistle. It shouldn't have a bunch of scale already on there. But then once you bring it out, it's going to instantly, that oxygen from the atmosphere is going to start attacking that iron, and it's going to be turning into iron oxide, which is scale, and popping off from there. And it will keep doing that until the steel cools down below the oxidizing state. Just going to keep doing that and keep doing that. When I first started blacksmithing, I used to brush religiously. I mean, I'd bring it out and I'd just brush as fast as I could, and then try to hammer on it. I'd lose the heat. And bring it out and brush, and hammer on it, I lose the heat. Until I finally realized, Roy, you big dope, as you're hitting it, where's all this new scale coming from? Every time you hit it, you disturb that surface layer of scale, that iron oxide. And then a new layer forms. And it keeps doing that until it drops low enough, but low enough to not do that. which is generally down, you know, on the lower temperature colors, like a dull orange. Once it gets down to about a dull orange to a bright red, it will no longer scale up on you. Then you can brush it and get all your scale off there, and it doesn't reform instantly. You're good to go. Saves you a crud ton of brushing time.
Neil Zagren, thank you for the 50 SEK super chat. He says it was Swedish forged in fire. I'm half Norwegian and I live 1 hour from Norway, but Sweden is Sweden.
It's Sweden, right? Sweden forged in fire? Drinks all around. Neil's buying. Neil's buying. Thank you, Neil. Greatly appreciate that, brother.
Janet McComb, the rustic blacksmith, says the instruction videos have been so helpful. I especially appreciate the video teaching Jess proper hammer form. It helped me immensely.
Awesome. I'm glad that helped.
Yeah, when we did that video, I told Roy I think that would help people to see an extra person, you know, him pointing out like where I was standing incorrectly.
Yeah, and that's a good way of doing that. That's a great way of doing that, actually.
Yamez, thank you for the mustache super sticker.
Mustache. Thank you, Yamez.
Dixie Station Tattoo, welcome to the Bellows Boy.
Hey, thank you. Congratulations on becoming a channel member of an awesome channel, if I do say so myself. Oh, I got to throw some more Coke up on this forge.
Okay. Neil Graham says, yeah, coffee time. Love me some caffeinated Roy streams.
They're always fun.
They are.
Maybe too informative. Oh.
Neil Graham says, that reminds me I need a new brush. I'm down to about 50 bristles.
That's about
Bristle bear.
that's about how long I go on mine. In fact, Jamie Geyer, the last time I was down at blacksmithing class, he threw in a free butcher block brush for me because he couldn't stand looking at my butcher block brush. It was all wore out, and I think I had 1 row of bristles left on it. I was still using, so he threw in an extra butcher block brush for me, and so yeah, I'll wear them out till they're nothing left, because I'm cheap.
Someone asked earlier, they said the horseshoe nail horse hook video, you know what I'm saying. Do you still recommend that for beginners as a good beginning project?
Yep, sure do. It's a great beginning project. It's really basic. You have to flatten the head out. Your tapering and stuff's already done. And so all you're trying to do then is, you know, create a little rat's tail on the end and bend it into a hook. And if you want to get real fancy, you put a little twist in it. And it's a great beginner project, something that you can feel the accomplishment of having a useful utilitarian item made, you know. And it doesn't take you 9 solid hours to make it either. You know, it takes you a few minutes. So it's good to throw a few of those. Like pep talk projects in there. Stuff to make you feel like you don't completely suck at what you're doing, right? Like, because when you're getting started at it, basically everything you do just takes forever, and you know, you're trying to figure a lot of stuff out. And so it's nice to have a few small projects like that that you could do to reward yourself with and say, I'm getting there, I'm progressing, I'm getting better, versus trying to do something large all the time, or whatever. You might have some grand plan and then you put it in action and you don't have enough skill yet to undertake it, and it just kind of beats you down. So it's good to have some of those little winning projects like that. So yeah, I still recommend that as a good little beginner project to do. And it's great to do with your kids too, or out demonstrations, or with the elderly, or just anything, because it's pretty low physically.
Exertion.
Physically, it's pretty low effort.
My mom even made one.
Huh?
I remember my mom made one once.
Yep. Your mama made one, huh?
Good. Rusty Hubcap says, evening, Roy and Jess. Can't wait to see where my swedge block is.
Hey, Rusty Hubcat. Where his swedge block is, huh? Yeah. Well, that'll be the next stream.
That will be. Yeah. Do we want to... There's a few new names in here. Do we want to tell them what to expect next live stream?
Yeah, we can do a good segue. So, this year is the year of the swedge block. I've partnered up with Holland Anvil, Greg and Hobie, over at Holland Anvil to bring you swedge blocks all throughout the year of 2021 here. So this is the year of the swedge block. And so we're giving one new swedge block away a month. And that's at the second live stream of the month. Our first live streams of the month are forging live streams only and like Q&A. So you can ask a ton of questions and we'll do some sort of project at the first live stream of the month. And then the second live stream of the month is our giveaway live stream where we have a bunch of door prizes, including the swedge block. So be sure to tune in for that. You'll want to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because if you're not subscribed and you have no notification bell, you'll never know when we go live. So, and then you'll miss out, which you definitely don't want to do. That's the spew on that.
Veteran Iron and Wood says, woo!
Hey.
Gordon Farmer's Forge said, would a wire brush from one of them welders be okay?
A wire brush from what?
A welder's, like a welder's brush.
Yeah, that's fine. You can work with that, wire brush like that. Doesn't have to be a butcher block brush. In fact, a butcher block brush is only really great on larger stuff or beginner forging thing. Not beginner, but beginning forgings. So once you start doing, if you got any little fine wiry detail stuff, it's a lot nicer to have a little welder's brush to brush things off, because you're not got a big honking mass of material that you're trying to brush stock off of. So this piece we've got it welded through. It's solid. There's no gaps in it. It doesn't feel like there's any gappage or anything like that in the piece. It feels solid. I'm getting a solid reverberation of the hammer. I'm feeling the anvil from underneath, so I don't believe there's any voids in it. And so now the next step is I need to weld up the end. I need to do some back face hammer blows and weld up the actual end of the piece itself. Because the way this thing is, if you chop them and bend them back, there's a high probability of getting a pocket right there in the very end. And when you forge weld on a hammer face, that is a good spot where it can start a crack and it can delam on you. So don't want to do that. On this particular case, I sawed off 2 equal pieces and I put them together, but there's still a seam there that I need to weld together. I need to make sure I dress out that seam on the face of this wrought iron billet. So that's what I'm working on now. And then I will have to chop the handle material off. To weld up the other end of it. And then have a nice, hopefully nice little square billet to turn into a straight peen hammer.
Yep.
Yep. It'll feel good to get this one off my books.
Mm-hmm. It is coming close to 6:30 now. How much longer is it going to take on the heat for that one?
On the heat for this one, probably another 10 minutes at least. Why?
Okay. I was just going to ask if you, I noticed you set the sled out. Did you have anything you were wanting to share about that?
Yeah, I want to share about that real quick. Does anybody else have any questions, or are they all good right now? We good to go?
I think we're good on questions right now, yeah.
Okay. I'll bring out the sled. Doo-doo. Aye. So, we got the sled done. I said I would show it off on the next stream.
Mm-hmm.
So there we have it. That was our January through February project, wasn't it?
Yep.
Can they see that all right on the camera?
Yep.
Top camera?
Mm-hmm.
Can they see that all right? So there you go. That's the final result. Came out looking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, if I do say so myself, you see this. See how those connect?
Yeah, very nice.
Oh. Now, I did, if anybody watched the when a blacksmith goes sledding video. If you saw in that video, one of the runners, basically, I didn't build this for a 240-pound man to sit on. So I built it for kids. I torture tested it, and because of that, I bent one of the scrolls as I was going, and it kind of pulled through the carriage bolt down into the wood, and then it was wobbly as all get out on there, and it didn't like to slide just right after that. So I had to bring it back, had to straighten it up, and I went ahead and added, let me brighten this up here. Maybe they can see it here. Can they see that all right?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. So I had to went ahead and added a cross brace here. I did a little twist at it and kind of fishtailed it out on the ends. Now right now it's just bolted together. It's just currently bolted together. Are we on camera too? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
So it's just bolted together for right now, just to make sure that it does work. It does indeed work, and I don't have to do any other adjustments. But once I know that that's all good, then all I gotta do is just rivet. I'll put rivets in these and I'll fully rivet it together, and it'll be good to go. All right, we go back to camera number 1.
Metal Man said, sled video was awesome. Good of test pilot Roy to test it.
Yeah, it does go really fast, by the way.
PJ?
It goes super fast.
Yeah, that was his question. How fast can it go? Pretty fast.
It will go really fast when we've got a good day where we actually got plenty of snow. That day wasn't the greatest day to go sledding.
The snow is starting to melt off.
Yeah, because the snow is starting to melt off. But it should go bomb hills pretty good. All right, we're ready?
Yep.
As I'm working this piece, I'm working across the entire surface. I'm not just hammering in the middle or just in one spot. I'm hammering the entire surface over. What this does is this helps close up those seams when you hammer the entire surface together. All right. Okie dokie. I have a little bit more to go on that end. That's about fully welded up, but cleaned up. I need to get that hot again.
Wiley Rook asked if the other kids were jealous of the sled.
Well, there wasn't any kids out there on the
There wasn't.
on the sled and hill when we went out, so it was actually perfect. They didn't have to see me eat snow.
Granddad says less donuts before sledding.
What's that?
Granddad says less donuts before sledding.
Less donuts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chocolate covered kind.
Less donuts over the whole year, right? So on wrought iron or any forge welding operation, you want to take your time, okay? Time is of the essence when you bring it out of the fire to making your welded joint. But where time is not of the essence is in preparation prior to making your forge weld, say in like a scarf weld, or after you get the pieces stuck. That's the time to refine the welded area, and take your time to refine that area, especially when you are selling your work and there's a chance of it ever coming apart on somebody. just like regular welders have to be certified, right, in welding, there's no standard for forge welding or certification that you can get for forge welding. But it should be taken completely seriously, as if someone's life was hanging in the balance when you make a weld. When it's ornamental speaking, so it's like in a gate, a railing, it's a nonsense piece, it's nothing to do with mechanical function, it doesn't matter. But when it's going to mechanically function in some way, you do need to make sure that you take extra care to make sure the surfaces are welded together, that you're not getting any delaminations, you're not getting some sort of big deconstruction of a hammer. If something's not right, fix it. Fix it. If it can't be fixed, start over and just don't chance it. That, in fact, is what happened with this hammer. I had all the chasing work done, had everything good to go, and once you know it, in an area that doesn't really matter, it's not like it's ever going to come out, there's a small delamination right where the peen was. It just cracked. It's not even a delam. It just cracked right along the carbon migration line. I rushed it. Rushed the heat treat. I don't know what I did. I was kind of just in the get it done mode, and so I should have took a little extra care with that. Knew it could have been a problem. It presented itself as a problem, and I lost 70 hours of work. So, but I can't sell that. I can't sell that hammer. I can't give it to no one. Can't do that. It's mechanically going to be beating things later on in its life, and I can't have a faulty tool in someone's hands. So if you're forge welding for somebody, or you're regular arc welding something up for somebody, a buddy, putting a bumper or a trailer hitch on a truck, or God knows what else you get into, do it to your best of your ability. And if you see that there's a potential that it's not going to work out, stop, either fix what needs to be addressed or start over. It's not worth it to just press on and say, that'll be all right. I'll just peen that little gap closed so no one will notice it. Don't do that. Always go back to square one if need be, if it's a must.
Metal Blueberry says, Roy, were you looking to see if your seams had closed all the way around? If it's fully welded, will you still see a line?
Yes, most likely you will still see a line. And the reason for that being, now there's a way of making that line disappear while it's just being welded. But most of the time, at the toe of a scarf, and that even means in something that's flat, you're going to see a line unless you do a lot of manipulation on that surface. And the reason for that being is as you're forging this piece together, the ends, or say the top and bottom, is wishboning. So it's spreading out more than, say, the center portion is, unless you're getting a good through hit. But nonetheless, as those bars come together, they start folding in on each other. That line acts like a cold shut in a way. It wants to kind of push itself in. And if you look on a really small, if you get it, put a jeweler's loop on it and look at it, you'll see that it radiuses in on itself together. And you'll just about never get that out of it. The only way to get that out is usually to grind it or file it off smooth, and then that line will disappear. Usually it's a surface line that you'll see. Now, I'm looking for voids. That's what I'm looking for. If I whack on this thing, I pop on it, I'm looking it over to make sure that something didn't just go boop, open up on me. Even on a small scale. You got to look real close to make sure that one of those seams didn't pop open somewhere on you. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm putting my eyes to when it comes to the forge welding itself. As far as the lines, they'll be there until I grind the hammer. Oh, and this is hot. Good to go. Just disturbed some coke in the bottom, so now it's kind of burning up a bit. We at the camera now too?
Yes, we are.
All right. So here's another good point to point out while I'm working on this here. Say this was for just a demonstration, right? YouTube demonstration purpose on a video. I may be tempted at this point to say, okay, yep, we're all good. Thanks for watching. This is good. This is good to go. We can go back to the main cam, Jess. Mm-hmm. But there's still a little bit in this billet I don't like. Since it's for a customer, that's unacceptable. I have to make it right. So I'm going to take the time and take some light welding passes over the surface that I want to get to, collectively go together a bit. I see a bit more line than what I would like. So I'm going to take the time and do what's needed to get that line out of it. To be sure, on my side of things, that there's no voids there that are going to add up to a stress riser that will then show up in the later parts of this project. So I will take the time to do it. Now, it's a lot easier on YouTube, when you're doing YouTube, to say, okay, good enough. You forge it. If it's not quite right on camera, you can always dress it up later when no one's seeing, no one's watching. But when it comes to a customer, when it comes to a customer's billet or thing, you can't take that luxury. You have to make sure that you get it right, the first time, all the time. So I will spend extra time on this, making sure it's right and everything's cleaned up the way I like it, and it's ready to go on to the next step, regardless of how boring that may be. On YouTube, you're trying to do everything in sound bites. Mm-hmm. Because people have attention spans the size of gnats. They're like, I'm bored. I'm going to go get some more Cheetos. I've got something else to do better with my life than watch this guy.
These are the long gamers. Been in here for an hour and 44 minutes.
What's that?
These are the long gamers.
Yep. Exactly.
And for the haul.
Most people pop in, watch 30 seconds, and leave on a video. That's just the way it works. Used to bug the ever-living daylights out of me, but it don't so much now, just because it's the nature of the beast. The people who find it valuable stick around and actually get all the information. People who don't, they fly on like little Twitter birds. Hummingbirds. They're gone. Questions, comments?
Rob Huff said, I took a class with a guy who lives in Michigan that said I shouldn't upset like that. Hard on your joints. His name rhymed with Roy. Wink.
You're right, Rob. You're right. And if you remember in that class, I gave specific outlines when you upset like that and when you don't. In general, you don't want to upset like that. Very true. But in this particular case, I don't have a choice. To get that end welded up, I can't drop it in any hardy hole or something because there's welding, there's a rod on the back side of this that I have to cut off that I'm gripping the thing by right now. So once that gets cut off, then I can stand it up on end and just get full welded blows into it. That'll be nice. Good looking out, Rob. Good looking out.
Let's see here. Gordon's Farmer said, would a 50-50 mix of anthracite and lump coal be any good for forge welding?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, you could mix in your anthracite into something else. That'd be fine. Again, I don't use anthracite coal, so I can't speak specifically on anthracite by a ton. Just because the times that I have used anthracite, it just did not work for me. So I'm at that point now in my career. I can be very particular about things just because I've been doing it long enough. I know what I like and what I don't like. And anthracite's one of those things I don't like. If it's what you got, it's what you got. You got to use what you got. But me and my shop, won't be doing it. Like Damascus. Won't be doing it.
Jeff Woodring, back when the coffee or the donut joke was made, he said donuts aren't on his keto diet. And then I asked him what his favorite food was. He said Thai ginger chicken. And so he's going to send us the recipe that came from a friend who lived in Thailand.
Wow, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
Gonna make me hungry. So. Talked about diets, huh?
Yeah, somebody else mentioned it. The Irish blacksmith said he's been on keto for 5 months now. Best decision he ever made. He's healthier, happier, and dropped over 34 pounds of Indeed Irish. LOL.
Woohoo! That's good. So far, I've lost a little over 20 pounds, about 23 pounds myself doing keto. So, works. I don't like it, but it works. I like losing the weight, but yeah, don't like the
restrictions.
I hate dieting. Food's one of my things that, you know, I love breaking bread with people. I love like eating with people. I love enjoying and experiencing food. And so it's really a bummer when it's like, oh, I got to look at every single label. Can I have this? No, can't have this. Can I have this? No, can't have this. Can I have this? Nope, can't have this. Can I have this? Nope, can't have this. Oh my God, drives me insane. Can't stand it. That's the worst part about dieting, is that whole, can I have this? No, I can't have this.
Graham says, hey, Roy and Jessica, I have been, hang on, comment moved. There we are. Hey, Roy and Jess have been given a job that is driving trucks and earning more money than I have earned in 3 years of working anywhere else. Awesome,
Cool.
Graham.
Awesome.
That's good.
Congratulations, Graham. Glad that's working out. Stock up. Stock up in the times of plenty. Yep.
Veteran Iron and Wood said, I tried the keto diet for a couple of months. It made me angry all the time and super irritable. We have found, I came across a recipe in a keto book called bacon fudge that is probably Roy's lifeline to staying on it. Basically using the bacon drippings and adding coconut oil to it and cocoa powder and stevia for sweetness, and then pouring that over like sunflower seeds or other like mixed nuts. And he really liked that, so.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're 15 minutes from 7, so you'll be.
What's that?
I said 15 minutes from 7.
I can't hear you. You're basically mumbling over there.
Okay. 15 minutes to 7.
Now I can hear you. That's better. Good. About time for like one last welding heat on that. And then next live stream, we'll weld some faces on it. Or at least prep some faces to be welded on it.
There's some question earlier of what that type of weld is called.
That type of weld is just called a faggot weld.
Okay.
YouTube censors will get all over you on that, so because of the other connotation for that word. So you will have to use accordion weld if you're layering something up. But the terminology for it, the historical terminology, was you know, a faggot weld. Basically, you're just stacking things up. So, yep, stacking things up. Oh yeah, baby. We're almost to heat. A few more seconds there.
Bill Wool says, best diet is the Daniel diet, nothing but fruit and veggies, but I can't stand veggies. So you're just eating fruit all the time.
Well, it's good to do for a time. I got too heavy. I got up to 260, 267, wasn't it? My highest. So I got back up to 260. My heaviest I've ever been was 267. And then the highest I got pre-January, I was 260. I weighed in 260. Now I'm at 237 now. So, yep. I do a lot better between about 200 and 225. That's really where I want to stay, you know, this time around. I got down as low as 189 when I was doing Advocare. And yeah, I was fit as a fiddle, but
Yeah.
whispery thin, running 5 miles a day and stuff. But yeah.
That was 2017, I think.
My body doesn't like being that light, though. All right, this is hot. You
All
got
right.
camera number 2?
Okay.
Okay. If you're going to weld and do back face hammer blows like I'm doing here, make sure you do it with an open palm. Don't be trying to resist this with your wrist. It's killer on your wrist, it's hell on your joints, so don't do it. Get all that scale off there now. Check out that joint again. Good, nice and clean. All I'm doing here is I'm trying to brush this to see how my joints look. The front one's completely gone, so that's good. The sides are tolerable for where they're going to be at. That one's a little better than that one. They're basically gone, so. Now for the weld check. We'll see if Roy's lying. We will set this up and let it cool down. What we're looking for in this piece, are we on camera number 2?
Yes.
Okay. What we're looking for on this piece, I can probably brighten that up just a fuzz. If it is properly welded, both halves should cool at the same rate. Anywhere that's not properly welded will cool at a faster rate than what the hole is. So this should look like one solid heated mass, and it should cool at the exact same rate. Now, something to note, anything like the corners here, say the corners or the edges of the material, they're going to cool faster. They have less mass in them, so you're going to get darkening at any edges you have. So that's going to happen. But what you're mainly looking for is for the entire mass to cool down nice and evenly. If it's cooling down nice and evenly, you can be sure that you have a weld completely and entirely through the whole billet. And I'm going to rotate this around. See how this side looks exactly like that side?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that, Jess, in the camera?
Yep.
This side is the same color as if I flipped it over to this side. It's all one same color. That's because it's all one homogenized piece now. This is all put together. If you have an inclusion in this, you will get a dark spot. A lot of times you'll find in wrought iron, especially used wrought iron from bridges, steel, whatever, you will find in especially lower grade wrought iron, you will find that sometimes they'll have inclusions in the actual material itself. So it might not even be your weld, but all of a sudden, like just like a corner will all turn dark, like abnormally dark. That's a big inclusion that will have to be forge welded together at a later date. Because as soon as you punch a hole through it, it's going to split or whatever on you. So yeah, you're looking for both halves of that billet to all cool down at the same rate.
Uncle Buck's Forge says, hi everyone. Only at work, so you can only stay for a minute. That's good information, Roy.
Hey, thank you, Uncle Buck. Good to see you here again, Steve. Take care at work, buddy. Been a long time no see.
He says, miss y'all too. Second shift sucks.
So there you go. See how it's all cool at the same rate?
Mm-hmm.
See how it's glowing in the center? It's like the core is glowing still.
Yeah.
If this wasn't welded, say if you had an inclusion, say if you had a part of this that wasn't welded, say on like this seam here. Say if part of the seam wasn't welded, this corner would just be dark, or one of the two would be. So like one corner would just be completely dark, and it would look odd from the rest of it. That is how you proof test and know that your welds have stuck. Again, if you see a line like you see here, as I said, you're trying to push this material together, and when it does that, it wants to buckle in. So you'll have to grind that off, and then it'll disappear. That line, you will never be able to know that you had a weld line there. When it's wrought iron to wrought iron. Now when it's high carbon steel, tool steel to wrought iron, when you weld this, you will have what they call a carbon migration line. It's the carbon from this migrating to the lower carbon that you're welding it to. And it'll be right at that weld joint. And you will still be able to see that line even if you file it clean. You'll see the carbon migration. The color of the steel will be different between the two. And if you etch it, you can make that pop. Hopefully that makes sense. This billet is all one solid mass now.
Joseph
Which is good.
Masakari says, what side are you going to punch the hole?
Great question. Got to put that up there. We'll put that on the... Let me answer that question by going over. We'll set this thing down now.
Okay.
That's good to go. Crank down the airflow on this. We will take out our handy dandy sheet of metal here, and I'll write that on. It's another good teaching point. That down there. Doo-doo-doo-doo. That put up there. Alrighty. Are we on camera number 2?
Which one do you want it on?
Let's
Number
go to
2?
camera 2.
Okay. Go ahead. Right about there.
Look good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, right now, we had put together basically 2 halves of something. We've made them whole. So I don't know if that works for the camera. I don't know if they can see that or not. Basically, we've got 2 halves right now. Right? They're whole. There's a seam. So if we were to punch with wrought iron along that seam, if we were to punch along that seam, that's horribly upside down. Bam. If we were to punch along that seam, we take a chance of splitting it because we are in a shear plane, okay, of that weld. So we need to punch contrary to our seam. So we always need to keep in mind where this seam is at in orientation to where we're punching and slitting and drifting from. So we are actually going to punch this piece, if you will, from top to bottom, if that makes sense. Can they see that okay?
Uh-huh. Yep.
If you go here, you take the risk of splitting open that seam. Even though it's welded together, you're enacting forces in a shear plane, like you're shearing those 2 pieces of metal away from each other. So we don't want that. We want to go cross grain to that, to take and punch through this piece for the eye of the hammer. Hopefully that makes sense. Good?
Yep.
Now, like if you had similar, say if you had a, if we're still here at the thing here, let's say you have a multi-layer billet of Damascus that you've all stacked up there. Can you see that over there?
Yep.
Same thing. You want to orient your punch, right? You want to orient your punch in the welded plane where they're all stacked up. If you run your punch in on your seams, you are now in a shearing plane. Again, you might have some cool look or that you're trying to do to put all this on the side, but if you run it in this way, there is a good chance you're going to split your billet. Because when we're slitting and drifting an eye, when we're slitting and drifting an eye, we are forcing material out around the eye. We are forcing material to the left and to the right, whichever way that is for you. We are forcing material these two directions because this is the path. These are the paths of least resistance. This, presumably, is thicker. Say this is a hammerite, right? So here and here, these act as an anvil against this. So these resist. It's thicker here and thicker here, so it puts all your energy into spreading this eye like so. And when you spread that eye out, you're putting a lot of stress on those shear planes. But from a drifting standpoint, if you're going through the top of the stack like this, it won't matter. In wrought iron, the grain structure matters. You have to pay attention to the grain structure of the iron like wood, and then you also have to pay attention to how you weld it up. So if you weld something up here, like what we did here, a half and a half, and you weld them together, that now becomes your new side that you have to weld from. That becomes a shear plane, and you want to stay away from doing that. Right now, the wrought iron is actually, I don't know if I can draw this out right. I don't know if that makes sense. Can they see that all right? Does that look three-dimensional enough?
Yeah. Yeah, that works.
Does it? Right now, the wrought iron has grain running in it this way. But there's less risk of the grain fracturing in this plane to put a hole in it versus my weld joint there. There's more risk of this splitting open versus this consolidated bar popping open on us. Hopefully that makes sense. Good?
Yep, it does.
Y'all been learned.
Professor Roy.
You youngins? Not so youngins? You older people than myself? Huh.
That's right. Burnt Pot Pie sent a $5 super chat. Said Roy started a martial arts emoji of a exploding head. Oh, just a diet I never heard of with raised eyebrow.
Thank you for the $5 super chat. Burnt pot pies.
Never heard of keto.
What else?
Let's see
Good?
here. Metal Man. Can Roy see the grain in his billet? Can you see it? Can you see grain in it currently?
No, not currently. And the reason why is because it's very fine grain wrought iron. Wrought iron used to come in grades. There was grades of wrought iron, just like there's different grades of steel that do different things with. The finer the grain structure and the finer the grade, or the higher the quality of the wrought iron, if you will, the more applications it was suitable for where they needed high strength, right? They needed high strength or they needed repeatability, and they needed it to, hold up over time, right? So there's really poor quality wrought iron out there that you can get, and I mean, it looks like a piece of driftwood, when you're forging on it, and you can see the grain the entire time that you're forging on it. This bridge material that I got of wrought iron, it's super fine grain wrought iron. There's a few inclusions in it that I've been able to find from, it just delambed. But all in all, the grain structure is really fine grain structure on this wrought iron. It does etch really pretty and that, but it doesn't have that heavy wood grain like you see in the lower quality wrought irons. If you're doing something decorative and you're trying to just get the texture and trying to get that look, the poorer quality wrought irons are great for that. It's also great for stuff that is non-essential parts and fittings that you're trying to make if you're repairing something. So for instance, a bridge, right? A big steel bridge. You wouldn't want to put garbage wrought iron or garbage steel into a bridge as construction, right? You'd want the most high quality wrought or high quality steel that you could get when a train is about to come barreling over the top of it, right? And it needs to hold up over time. So that's what this was. It was a train trestle bridge. It was a big steel bridge that was somewhere northeastern, like northeastern Pennsylvania is where this thing came out of. And again, beautiful stuff to work with. Now there's some other parts of it that are even better than what these are. These would have been like the main bracing bars, if you will, in the bridge, kind of like cross braces. And then I have some other parts that were actually tension bolts, like what you would have, how to think about it. Yeah, just they're tension bolts. Riveted in here, got a turnbuckle in them. Pulling tension, right, on the bridge. Those are super fine grain wrought iron, almost to the point where you wouldn't believe it was wrought iron. You have to etch it to even see any grain at all. It just smacks around like putty, and you know, like, this isn't mild steel because it's inch diameter, and you could just move it like as if it was half-inch material. It's beautiful, beautiful stuff to work with, and make some really high quality stuff out of it. So, but if you're trying to get a real decorative like knife blade with etch that shows like a lot of character, it wouldn't be your type of wrought iron for sure. Great for hammers though.
Daniel Crawford said, yes, like the small gauge railroad track I sent you, super fine grain structure, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, that small piece there, that's going to be super fine grain structure. Again, depending on where it was at, how it was implied. If it was like miner's rail or something like that, it might not be. It might not be great wrought iron. If it's going to have a train running across it, it's going to be probably higher quality wrought than what you're used to. Wagon tires, that's another thing. Sometimes that's a mixed bag. Old wagon tires, it's getting harder to find those anyhow. I think people have exhausted that resource just about on old wagon rim wheels. But old wagon rims wheels, they were generally like a medium grade wrought iron. They weren't really that great, but they're not poor either. If you see a lot of farm implements and you see like cross braces and strap wrought iron, that usually is really garbage wrought iron. That's the only way to say it. It's just garbage wrought iron, because they save that for the non-essential parts that wasn't going to end up getting somebody killed. Chain link, great wrought iron. Again, it's holding something. People are skidding logs, anchoring a boat, you know, a ship out to sea. You know, it's going to be under tension, right? There's going to be a lot of stuff like that. That's going to be a higher grade wrought iron for you. Usually your little fittings and fixtures and like little small stuff, that was all made out of a lot lower grade wrought iron.
Tommy Smith says, could you make scroll work like a sled with wrought iron?
Can you make scroll work
Mm-hmm.
like in the sled?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. Wrought iron's been used for thousands of years. It's great stuff. I actually prefer wrought iron. I wish I had scads more wrought iron, and I did all my business in wrought iron. I love the stuff. There are some people out there, they hate wrought iron, and it's just because they don't get it. You have to work with it almost like you're working with wood in a way. You have to be conscious of the grain structure. If you know where the grain structure is flowing, you can make it do a lot of miraculous things. And man, it sure saves you a lot of sweat equity when it comes to hammer work. Really does. Mild steel and wrought, if I gave you a bar of wrought iron, I gave you a bar of mild steel, and I didn't tell you which is which, you within 5 seconds of hammering both of them, you'll know exactly which one's wrought iron. Because it's so soft. It's so soft, and it welds beautifully. That's another great thing about it. I mean, it just welds perfectly. It's really simple. As you can see, I brought it up really hot, sitting here casually talking. At no point did I burn it, right? At no point was enough oxygen in that fire to actually burn it. So, you know, it ran really good. Ran really good.
Rob Huff said, Ed and Brian brought him some wrought iron back. Think it was a water tower. Hit or miss, but there's some good stuff in there for sure.
Yep. Yep, and it just depends on what it was used for. Again, you might have the odd piece of the structure that's really thick and they didn't put a lot of time into refining it. It's going to be really thick, right? It's just going to take the weight. It was over-engineered anyhow, so it's, it would have been fine. And so they didn't take the time to refine it. But on stuff that really matters, key juncture points, that's going to be your finer grade stuff. So it's not so much as finding old wrought iron as you need to have an understanding of what it came from. If you can find out what it came from, chances are, without you ever even forging on it, you'll know whether it's going to be good for whatever purpose. If it was a whole bunch of nails, horseshoe nails or something like that, it's going to be junk wrought. It's not going to be. They're not going to use great wrought iron into something that's going to be lost in a shoe somewhere, right, or on a trail somewhere. They're not going to put their good stuff into that.
High Desert Forge says, can you take a lesser quality wrought iron and weld it, fold and weld until you have a few hundred layers, like Damascus from a bloom, to increase its quality, or will it always be poor quality?
No, that's perfectly adequate. The thing that makes poor quality wrought iron poor quality is they put less wrought work in it, right? Wrought means to work. They put less wroughting into that wrought iron. They made a shape that would function for the purpose, whether it be a bar, a beam, whatever. They just took it to that shape as fast as they could to produce the product. If it was critical, it would be, again, they had grades of it. This stuff's been worked, reworked, refaggoted up, rebilleted, reforged out a couple times to work out the inclusions. Because as you're forging wrought iron at those higher temperatures and forge welding stuff up, you're working out more of that silica. You're working out some more of those inclusions and those things that would have been in the material to make it weak and garbage wrought iron to begin with. So you're consolidating it more and more as it goes. With mild steel, not the case. It's just mild steel. It's all homogenized. There is no grain structure. There's nothing to work out of the material, right? There's nothing there. So yeah, you can take really garbage wrought iron, a whole bunch of horseshoe nails and old horseshoes, right? Really garbage horseshoes that are wrought iron, and who knows, whatever other junk, some junk fencing maybe you found that has some junk wrought iron in it. And if you stack it all up and, do a stack with it, a bundle, or what they used to call it, faggoting. If you faggot all that up into a bundle and a brick and you forge that out and refine it, it's going to become a much higher grade wrought iron for you. And they used to do that. And they would do it in layers. So, they would have the grain on some of it running this way, the grain running this way, the grain running this way, and they would forge all that together. They draw it out in a bar, break it off, or bend it back on itself again, and then they would draw that material out and work it like that. So the more it's worked, like down into your finer stuff, like bolts, things like that, larger bolts and stuff, by the time it got to that point, it's pretty good wrought iron. It's pretty good wrought iron. Wagon tires, less so. There's, again, dime a dozen people were always ruining them and whatnot. They were not made out of the most high quality wrought out there. And there'd be differences too. You're going to have higher quality wrought on something like a Surrey cart versus something like, a manure wagon. A manure wagon's going to have junk. It's going to have junk for tires. It is that, versus someone in a little carriage and the lord of the manor, you don't want him flipping over and breaking his neck and you out of a job, right? So you would put high quality wrought in them tires. Just like today, you buy quality tires or you buy junky tires based upon your price and what you can afford and what it's used for. And yep. Good questions. I'm loving the Q&A portion of this, if you haven't mind. If you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
What's going on?
There's been a lot of
good stuff.
Good ones. A scroll. Oh, nothing. Somebody asked about
I can't hear
a forged scroll. Captain Marvel reference.
Oh.
I'm not doing a good job there.
No.
Yeah, veteran iron and wood. Wrought is the old English word for to work. Yep.
Yep.
That's what Roy said.
Wrought, to work. Yep, that's what I meant. To work the piece, to wrought the piece. To wrought the iron. We just call it wrought iron.
Black Collar Ironworks says monkey wrenches. Is it low-grade wrought iron?
Monkey wrenches. That would be probably higher grade wrought iron in it. Yep. Should be. Again, based upon the manufacture of it, same thing. Where did it come from? Was it a good tooling manufacturer when they were making it, or was it the Harbor Freight of the day? If it was the Harbor Freight of the day and it was a cheap get you by tool, then that's not going to be as good a grade as the other ones. But again, that's one of those things where I take a lot of issue with people if they advise people to just steer clear of this material completely. I've heard that. Literally, people in the middle of demonstrating say, "Oh, I hate wrought iron. Stay away from it. It's horrible. We've got modern steels. Use that." And it usually comes from one bad experience where they tried to forge some low-quality wrought, and they had a terrible time because they didn't know what they were doing with it. And but then they just advised 60 other people, newbies or whatever, that they should hate wrought iron and stay away from it and steer clear, right? And I really take issue with that. You have to treat it for what it is, just like tools. Tools are just tools. Gas forge, coal forge, don't matter. They both heat steel. They're both tools. They have their advantages, they have their disadvantages. If you're a beginner, you're wondering which one, go to somebody's shop who has both. Try them out for yourself. Be conscientious of your neighbors. If you live in town, you're in the city, maybe, Doug across the street from you doesn't like sulfurous smoke in his face while he eats his flapjacks in the morning, right? So maybe gas forge is going to be your go-to there, right? So, or maybe the type of work you do is a lot of repetitive type work and all one type temperature. Gas forge is going to excel at that versus a coal forge. If you need to have 5 or 6 pieces in the fire at one time, a gas forge is going to be better versus a coal forge. So use the gas forge. That's what it is. It's a tool. So, and steer clear of people out there. I don't care who they are. Steer clear of the people out there that are all or nothing. Like, this is it. It's coal forge or you're not a real smith. Gas forge or you're not a professional.
Roy rant.
That's all hogwash. It's all garbage. It's all garbage. So steer clear of advice coming from people that are like that. I've heard it all, almost all. I've heard all sorts of stuff, and it took me a lot of time sorting through a bunch of BS when I got started smithing and figuring out who to listen to and who not to listen to, and and who had the best advice. So it does take a little bit of sorting, but if you're just starting this, try everything. There's no harm in trying it at least once. In the aspect of something that's not dangerous, I better preface that.
That's the key.
If it's going to be super dangerous, you probably shouldn't.
Thank you, Metal Man Productions, for the $10 super chat. He says, thanks for another fine Friday night. A lot cheaper than the movies and better content.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Metal Man. Thank you very much.
Also, thank you, Toby Joe, for your 10-pound super chat.
Yeah.
Says, I have a large collection of bottom fullers, maybe 200 years old. Should I repurpose them or keep them for historical value?
That's the age-old question. I have a hard time taking another man's work and smashing it into a new item. Because for me, I get a bit sympathetic with history. I like old tools. I like old stuff, right? Like there's a bit of a sense of you're getting connected with a craftsman. that you'll never know, you'll never see, you know, but his tool has survived 200 years just to go into your forge and be whacked around on and changed to something else. So I guess I would be under the persuasion of, you know, keep them for, you know, their historical value, if there's anything there. On the other end, there's a lot of old blacksmith tools out there, like really old, that were wore out when the smith was using them. Like, say if I were to be dead tomorrow and someone cracks open this shop in 100 years and, you know, some lucky guy's like, woo, look at all this blacksmith and stuff. I always wanted to be a blacksmith, and, you know, Jeff and my great-grandkids give him a great deal on it, right? There are tools in my shop that are junk. They're just junk. They were junk when I made them, and they're junk now, and they're going to be junk when I wear them out finally. And so I wouldn't be crushed to know that somebody threw them all in a big pile and smelted them down for something else, or forged them into something else that was more handy for them. You know, it wouldn't matter. If it's a good-looking tool, if it looks like somebody put a lot of time and care into it, maybe keep it on a shelf. You know, other stuff, if you're a working blacksmith, you're trying to get in the shop, get something done, and you can repurpose it, regrind something to fit your needs better, go for it. It's not out of hand of what I would do that someone's going to dig up my stuff 100 years from now.
There's a little side convo going, and Daniel Crawford brought it perfectly into a summary with this question. Is there a noticeable difference between English, French, German, or American wrought iron?
Noticeable difference. Well, I can't tell you. If you talk about the style, yes, big noticeable differences. Except with colonial ironwork and, say, American ironwork. Those run pretty close together, like, you know, English ironwork to colonial ironwork, right? Those run pretty close along the same tastes, if you will. So that's on aesthetics, right? There's a difference. If you're talking about the material itself, it would be my guess that probably stuff coming from England would have been better, because those countries are older. They've been working it way longer than what America has had places to do wrought iron from. So, and they were, in fact, the last to produce it too. The first to produce it and last to produce it. So when it comes to that, I would say that they have, you know, they probably have a leg up. Ironwork over there, the iron grades are probably going to be a lot higher over there.
Yeah, Gordon Farmer was saying that the best wrought iron was from the UK, and somebody else had rebutted, well, what about the French wrought iron that made the Eiffel Tower?
Ah, I see. Yeah.
So.
Well, anywhere from Europe is probably going to be better. I can't speak to localities or regions. I'm sure there's plenty of people willing to go bash it out at a pub somewhere over their particular country of fancy. But all I know is here in America, you're really not, unless someone's labeling it as that, you're not going to find overseas wrought iron. You're going to find something that was produced here mainly, or, you know, manufactured here, unless it's really old wrought iron, like colonial period wrought iron. You're going to find the grades here that are just American-made grades of wrought iron. So wouldn't have something I could compare it to. But I would imagine, yes, anywhere in Europe is probably going to have better wrought iron according to grade than what we would here in America, just because they've been at it longer. Yep.
Well,
what else?
do you think we ought to, quite a few people are starting to say goodbye for the evening.
Yeah, a lot of people checking out. That's good. Well, I hope I answered everybody's questions good enough. I hope I've been informative enough. Thank you, everyone who's come out to the stream. Thank you, everyone, for the super chat donations. Thank you to the channel member that enjoyed. I was going to say channel members, but it was the channel member
Yes.
who joined us. So thank you very much.
That was Dixie Station Tattoo.
Dixie Station Tattoo. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that membership. So the link to go and set a reminder for the next live stream is in the description, as well as all the class stuff. everything that we talked about this evening going forward, all of that information is linked up down in the description down below. So make sure you go check that out. Jessica does that at every single live stream. You know, make sure we're in a good spot there. And yeah, so be sure to check that out. Be there at the next live stream. We'll be giving away a swedge block at the next live stream. Set the reminders. Set the bells for notifications. Set a reminder on your phone to tune into Christ Center Ironworks.
That's right. Don't leave it up to Google.
Yep. Don't leave it up to Google to notify you. So set up your own alarm clock and a reminder on your phone. That way you know. Mark it on your calendars. That way you can be a part of it.
That's
And do
right.
that. Get in on the great door prizes and good stuff like that. We good?
Yeah, we're good.
So, last word of the day. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it. God bless y'all. Bye now.